Hello and welcome to another episode of Oh So Curious, and today we're going to mix in some DCU Daily Rad alongside it. So I've got a lot of things to talk to you about. We've got John and Angelina waiting to talk to you about Climbing to the Moon, Twisters, there's the Emmy nominations. We've got some news from James Gunn as they wrap up shooting in Cleveland and move on to Cincinnati. We've got lots more even beyond that to talk about, what's going on at the box office. We're going to look ahead to Twisters and lots more. So to get that and all of the, the movie news in the world, let's get the show started. Well, hello everybody. How are you guys doing?
Good. We love the craziness. Lots of things to discuss, and there's things coming out, and the Emmy noms are here, and all the good stuff.
Hell yeah. And John, how are you doing today? I know we got more DC stuff to talk about later.
Yeah.
But...
Hell yeah. So I would say just let's get right into it because there's a lot of good stuff to talk about today.
Boom.
Hell yeah. You know how we usually get the show started, right? We get into the news, and there's a lot of news to talk about, including the Emmys. So let's start with that.
It doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always number two.
All right, Mr. I need to paint my abs on to get nominated. You don't see Robert Downey doing that.
You're kidding.
You're
kidding. I can't open the envelope without the...
Warner Brothers is heading back into the Matrix with a new movie in the works.
What the hell is even that?
Okay, I'll shout it from the rooftops. I want to be Bruce Wayne.
I like that. You're gonna love me. What the needs now?
Give me a hand up. Nope, I'm actually okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Why does he look so sad?
David, why are you so sad?
You know who's not sad is Shogun and FX. The team at FX, they've really climbed up the ranks of the Emmys because for the first time, I think maybe even ever, or first time in a long time certainly, FX has managed to garner more nominations at the Emmys than HBO. That's, to me, I think that's a big deal.
What do you think? Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
deserving? Who knows?
Yeah.
I would say they've been on fire of late.
Well, I mean, I've heard great things about Shogun, so like I'll give that.
Dan went through a whole phase where he was like, Shogun everything.
Super into Shogun. I gotta watch it still. I still want to watch it. And then there's The Bear, which I did watch, and it kind of sucked. Yeah. So I don't know if that's worth it. So
the new season, you didn't like the new season?
No, I did. I'm done with the show. I can't watch anymore. I just because the first season was so amazing, and then it never reached that.
I don't even remember, honestly, when this new season came out. I was like, did I watch the second season? And I literally binged the first and second season so quickly. I didn't even know that there was like a break in the between. Like I just because I picked up later on the show. I loved it.
Season 2 was good. Season 3, I was just like, this is stressing me out. I don't care. Everyone's annoying me. Why do I give a shit? And it's just like, and then it ended, and then I'm like, yeah,
The Bear
I have no desire to continue this show ever again.
You guys don't trust his pessimism, because The Bear got 23 nominations. Last year got 13 nominations. It's incredible. It got a new record for a comedy in 1 year. So Shogun has 25 nominations. That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, it's
fucking Jimmy Kimmel got nominated, and Stephen Colbert got nominated. That means nothing.
It's a completely different category.
I know, but Jimmy Kimmel is a cancer, and so is Stephen Colbert. So, fuck them both.
Cancer. Wow.
You know what I'm trying to figure out? There was
John went on vacation and he came back more of a hater. How did that happen?
I got relaxed even more, and now I don't even care any more than I already did, if that's even possible. There it is. That makes sense, right? Anyway.
Moving on.
I was just gonna say, as the only Emmy winner amongst the crowd here, I have to say that Shogun is definitely worth all the nominees that it's gotten.
As the only Emmy winner. Yet, Dan. Just you wait.
I'm just saying. You want? I can
Angelina's
bring it out.
gonna get a
if you guys
deal on a
want the
big
proof.
show, and then she's gonna win all the Emmys. So you know
Hell
what?
yeah.
Bite your tongue, sir, for the time
Mind
being.
your
I'm not-
tongue,
hey.
sir.
I'm just saying. I'm gonna own it while I'm ahead. That's all. I don't
For sure.
know if I will be ahead forever, because your chances are you're gonna get a lot more in your career than I will. But the Bear, I watched the latest season, and I think it pulled me in because that was my introduction to the Bear. I've never seen any other season. I've only seen parts of it, and the latest season, just the pace at which the show moves impressed me. The editing, the dialogue, like how quick the banter back and forth. It's a fun watch. Only Murders in the Building, that's been a staple
Huge.
of the Emmys.
I am surprised that Lessons in Chemistry got 10 nominations. I kind of hated that show. I thought it was garbage. Everything about it was
there you
kinda
go.
like,
You have
wait,
your
what?
hated show. I have mine.
Yeah, but I feel like everyone agreed with me on that one, except apparently the Emmy.
But the thing is, I've never even heard of Lessons in Chemistry. I don't even know what the hell that is.
It was like a book remake, and they botched it, and it had Brie Larson in it, and she was like the worst possible casting for that I could have ever seen.
Well,
they had her
Brie
play
Larson,
this like,
so
yeah, I kind of hate her. I'm not a fan of hers at all anymore.
because she has one emotion throughout her entire career. So
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy that RuPaul's Drag Race got in there. That's a fun
Hell
show.
yeah.
We got the Grammy Awards, the Oscars, the usual stuff like for all
I've
the
heard great things
special
about Reservation
categories.
Dogs. You know,
I'm surprised
for sure.
Frasier got nominated because I heard that was
the new one.
garbage.
It's not
Avatar: The Last Airbender got that's sad.
They give Emmys to everybody for the
How I Met Your Father. This is like weird.
Dude, I'm surprised Abbott Elementary only got 10 nominees because that's a show that really got a lot of love in recent times. I mean, here's the thing: you may get 26 nominations, but you may not. Like Shogun got 25, but they might walk away with only like 3 trophies. So it all matters, what your hit rate is. But hey, Netflix has got 107 nominations, FX has got 93, and then HBO/Max with 91. What impresses me is that Apple TV Plus has jumped ahead of literally, staples like Hulu, Disney Plus, Prime Video, NBC, all the networks, ABC, CBS, and it's got 72. So Apple TV Plus must be doing something right. I mean, even beating out Showtime, for example, who tend to do well usually, but you could tell the lion's share of the nominees are in the top 4 there. Then there's a big drop off, and they're all streaming. What does that tell you guys about like where the state of our entertainment landscape is today? Like it's all streaming at this point. What do you guys have any picks? Any particular ones that you really want to win, or you're looking forward to, or you're just like, let's see, 1 or 2 shows might sweep everything? Do you have somebody that you're rooting for in particular?
I don't really watch a lot of TV nowadays, even though I'm trying to catch up on TV, but nothing is really noteworthy to me. So can't really have a good judgment on the TV side of things.
I mean, look,
like I didn't watch Shogun, I didn't watch 3 Body Problem, I didn't watch Fallout.
3 Body Problem was good and weird.
I heard it was
good and had a lot of really incredible.
But it's funny because my dad watched it. He was like, "Yeah, it was good." It's just like, why is it that for some reason every scientist on planet Earth in this show is a drop-dead gorgeous supermodel? That just doesn't make sense to me. So he's like that kind. It's like nobody has like a pimple, nobody has a wrinkle. Everyone like looks like they just got out of like Project Runway or something. What the fuck is up with
He's
it?
just referring to that one actor who absolutely she does look like a fucking supermodel. Like I don't know where she came
Arjona?
from.
Yeah.
I was like, who is this girl? Like, what? I was like,
Yeah,
huh?
she was in Good Omens, and I've heard a lot of people.
She was in that
her.
ambulance movie for Michael Bay.
Yeah, and a lot of people want her.
She was in
for
like
the
a newer
new
movie too, but
she was
I
in
love
one of
her.
the
I think
Godzilla
she's
Kong
great.
movies. Yeah. Oh, she was in that Hitman movie with our
Yeah.
guys.
A lot of people
Uh,
want her for Wonder Woman too in the new
yeah. Oh,
DCU, so
yeah. Yep.
there's that as well. But that's for
I
later.
think the science in Three Body Problem was dodgy, but the visuals were great. But as a hard sci-fi fan, like I want my science to line up well with the sci-fi part of it. But anywho, I think of all those shows, Shogun is probably gonna be the one that wins. And then Slow Horses, that's an under the radar
I
pick.
haven't seen
Slow
that one
Horses,
at all.
Never
I don't even
heard
know
of
what
it.
it is.
it's on Apple TV Plus. Gary Oldman. I think the next
Mm.
James Bond is in that
I feel
show.
like I miss out on a lot of Apple TV Plus
you
stuff
guys should
because I
watch
kind
that.
of forget about
I didn't
it.
know the morning show
Like,
was
I'm
still
not
on. I thought
subscribed
that
to
ended.
it.
Oh, it's still, yeah.
And I was like,
Yep.
oh man, I just miss a lot of stuff. The fact that the Gilded Age is still going is wild to me. I tried to get onto that show and I was like, no.
Yeah.
No. Baby Reindeer is also like a weird. People really love that show.
Yeah. Well, it's like
They don't-
it's true crime. It's like
so weird.
technically based on true crime. So a lot of people like that
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised to see if The Bear and Shogun dominate because those are like the two big shows that are right now like the cultural zeitgeist moment shows. Slow Horses, like the morning show, the morning show is one that just kind of lives there because it lives there. It's like an easy pick each year that there's a new season. I want to see how well Only Murders in the Building does this year because that's another holdover from years past. But there's other news out there, so let's kind of keep the ball rolling here. This one is something that turned my head a little bit. John, you read through this article. The Russo Brothers, they are the highest grossing directing duo in Marvel history and probably in the history of Hollywood outside of James
Unfortunately.
Cameron. For better or for worse. They are coming back to Marvel for Avengers. I know in recent times they've sort of like denied that they were interested, and
It's gone back and forth. I've heard they didn't want it, then they do want it, then they didn't want it. Now it looks like they're in talks. So that's what I believe Daniel Cretton, the director of Shang-Chi, was
Justin Daniel Cretton,
was the first
attached to Avengers 5.
First to attach to direct. And then there were reports that Sean Levy was offered after they liked what they saw with Deadpool and Wolverine. Said like, okay, why don't you direct Avengers 5? I don't think they said anything about Avengers 6.
But like, who are the Avengers? Like, even that is just becomes so confusing.
Yeah,
like,
we don't even know who the Avengers are anymore.
Are they? And so even if they were to line that up, then they would have to build all of these stories unless they introduced all the characters in Avengers 5. So then they would have to like build it up essentially, not from the beginning, but pretty damn near like where we started Iron Man. Like they completely cleaned the slate and killed everybody off. And now it's like, what do they do? Like, I don't even know who the Avengers would be at this point.
I know that there was like there was a really good video on this like years ago. They're like, oh, with all the shows that are coming out, they're setting up like how when there was like an Avengers reboot in I think the 80s, like there was like all these characters that were being set up, like White Vision and She-Hulk and Star Fox and all these other characters that were getting set up in other movies. And it looked like they're going to be the Avengers, but who knows at this point? And I get like Marvel's desperate at this point. Outside of Deadpool and Wolverine, they have not been making money. Their last 3 movies have, even with Guardians, which was very good, they just have not. They've just been like in the shitter. So like, let's hope we bring back the guys who directed the last 2 Avengers movies that made us all the monies. Let's hope they can get back, even though they're not really that great in the public eye anymore, because the last 2 movies they've directed were not critically acclaimed. Cherry and The Gray Man, which were very, very bad. So I think people are kind of wising up that the Russo brothers are not all that anymore. So I don't know how this is going to stand. I think this is just a desperate move from Marvel, where it's like we need to make money. Bring the Russos back. Let's hope we can get our money back this time. But that's how I see it. That's how I see it. So
I think Sean Levy just got cursed by the Star Wars franchise, where he's been tapped to supposedly direct a Star Wars movie, which means his career is about to be a dumpster fire like every other Star Wars director our would-be Star Wars director in recent years. So I think that after Deadpool and Wolverine, he's going to be off doing that until he's not, and then his Star Wars movie gets canceled. The Russo brothers, on the other hand, inevitably gets canceled. Like who
Patty
like,
Jenkins, Ryan
Taika
Johnson,
Waititi.
Taika Waititi, they all had movies. They all got
even
canceled.
Kevin Feige was gonna do a Star Wars movie at one point.
Yeah, it's like happened. Everybody, you get a
and the MCU is a dumpster
Disney,
fire.
Can I get a Star Wars movie? I won't make anything as terrible as The Acolyte. Yeah. So we'll see.
I don't know. I mean, but like as far as this is still just speculation because the Russo brothers, between The Gray Man, which has spawned an entire franchise on Netflix, and Electric State that they've got Chris Pratt, and I don't know. I mean, until they say so, it's hard to believe that this is actually going to happen. But we'll see. Do you guys think that Russo brothers should even come back to direct Avengers 5? Let us know in the comments because.
But it doesn't matter. I don't really care anymore. So.
Well, staying on the Marvel topic, John. Something a little lighter.
I'm obsessed. Can you okay, I need everyone to tell me what their favorite track on this album is right now. Now.
Well, considering one of my favorite movies is Back to the Future, I have to go with Power of Love.
Yeah.
I would say The Greatest Show myself. Or Bye Bye Bye.
The Bye 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 with NSYNC got me, but actually what killed me is I'm With You from Avril Lavigne. I was like,
this is such a weird list.
Okay, but a lot of these songs are like power ballad sad songs. So I'm like, how many people are dying in this movie? Like, oh my God. I'm talking like power ballad sad songs.
Well, I mean,
I'm With You, I used to cry.
They have all these power ballads, but they don't have the best vocalist for power ballads. Meatloaf. Where's my goddamn Meatloaf tracks?
Like,
come on. But I also like the Aretha Franklin track, the Green Day track.
Yeah, I'll Be Seeing
Jimmy
You
Durante,
is also kind of a sad song. I'm like, damn, what's going on here?
Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta.
I'm curious.
I love how they have The Greatest Showman. That's just they know what they're doing.
They were like an ode to you, Hugh Jackman, an ode to you. Yeah, I saw this and I was pumped immediately. I was like, wow. I've also just been really into movie soundtracks lately. Like, I think that's the one thing that has set the Challengers apart for me was all of the incredible sound, like all of the incredible music that they paired with the action. And I just come to realize that like it makes me so much more pumped like when they have good music. It really makes or breaks a movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of disappointed that Wolverine is going to be driving Deadpool around instead of Dopinder. I'm gonna miss Dopinder in this movie. I mean, maybe he ends up coming along at the beginning or the end of the movie. I think Dopinder had a good mixtape for the last couple of movies. But I'm good with it. I can't imagine how these songs are gonna get put to use. Whether it's people getting slashed up while the song's playing, or The Greatest Show is definitely going to be interesting because that's definitely
I'm a rambling man. I mean, honestly, these songs are like pretty random. I'll be honest. I have no idea.
There's Glamorous by Fergie on this.
Yeah, they have a K-pop band on there. Like,
I literally don't know.
And of course, they have Angel in the Morning, which was on the original Deadpool, demo reel way back when. Hi, Tom. Like, that thing. So
up in the sky. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's gonna be interesting.
That's the news, y'all.
That's the well, we will get into a little bit later is an update from Superman because James Gunn is now talking about how they're wrapped filming in Cleveland and then moving on to Cincinnati. So we're gonna dive into that. We're gonna talk about it.
Going to Cincinnati.
Yeah, we're clear. I don't know if I have that clip loaded up here, but if I did, I would have definitely thrown it to Bill Belichick. But you know what we are gonna throw it to right now is we're gonna get into talking about Twisters. That's the next one up.
I am coming to get you.
Bye-bye.
Speaking of tornadoes, Angelina,
well,
are you
good times?
My brain goes different wacky places. That's just
I was like, wow, nobody else could have possibly made that Steve Martin connection to an early 2000s movie. I was like, what? Huh?
But
I mean,
yeah,
you gotta
so-
love Steve Martin though.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of only murders in the building,
Mm-hmm.
there you go.
Speaking
There you
of, we haven't talked about America's daddy in a long time. This is like America's daddy's son, Glenn Powell.
Okay, I was
That's
gonna
the connection we're
say,
making here.
Daddy.
Where were you
he's
going
like,
with that?
he's
Glenn
like,
Powell.
he's
I
as
have
old as all of
now-
us. What are you talking about?
No, so Glenn Powell is like, he's going to be America's daddy in like 15 years. But right now, he's just America's like new Brad Pitt. He's so cute. You got to give it to him. And he's a great actor. I'm pleasantly surprised every time I see Glenn Powell on screen. As a woman, look, I need y'all to just let me live. You guys are judging me hardcore right here. Glenn Powell
I'm not saying anything.
shows up with like an 8-pack and he can act. Come on.
Yeah, good for him.
I'm very excited about this movie, guys. As you know, I'm a huge fan of her. She's one of my favorites. Also,
she's
just
super
in general,
jealous.
it's already, the previews are killing it. Like the previews are going. Are you guys excited to see the movie?
I have no intention of seeing this because I don't
Why?
Because I don't care. I could
Why?
not give more. Like, if I really want to see more, daddy son Glenn Powell action, I will gladly just rewatch Top Gun Maverick. I don't even have to watch.
But your Superman is in this movie, you guys.
Watch the football scene.
Your new Superman.
David Corenswet
is
in the movie. He is in the movie because
Yeah,
the director. Yeah, the director of this movie was talking about how David Corenswet was going through the process of being cast as Superman while they were filming this movie, and they were just really excited for him, but they couldn't say anything.
You're
And then
playing
when he
a
got the
literal
role-
American icon. I would hope people are excited for him. So
I just know
That is the
Angelina
worst
just
photo of him. I was like, ew.
No, the worst photo is like of him going like that, like his profile picture on fucking Wikipedia.
I
Like
take it
where
all back.
he looks like a
I take it
capybara.
all back,
Yes.
everyone. Ignore everything that I just said. Yeah, it actually officially, I think, comes out today. I think it's a Wednesday opener, not a Thursday opener. So I'm going to definitely be heading over and seeing this movie either tomorrow or Friday night. Very excited.
Cool.
It's going to be, I just also think it's so much fun. Daisy Edgar Jones was actually doing PR, and she said that during the course, or like shortly after filming this movie, they had made so many relations with actual storm chasers in I think they filmed it in Oklahoma or Kansas or something, but they had met so many real storm chasers that did it for a living that they called her while she was at Glastonbury, and she's like, hey, there's a big storm coming, and she like left early or something like that to go chase a storm with Glenn Powell in real life. And she said it was like at one point the radar went off, like there was a twister literally right next to them, and I'm just like, oh, you guys aren't even acting anymore, you're just being crazy. Okay, cool. I love that for us.
I don't
it's gonna
get
make the movie
point of
great.
storm chasers, but good for them, I guess.
I guess.
I get like queasy like on a deep hill. Like I'm not the type of guy to like understand this type of thing, So I don't get it. But you do you.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm very excited about it.
I mean, for me, this movie is. How does it connect to the original Twister movie? Which, by the way, I went digging, and apparently there's a Twisters movie from 1989.
I do vaguely remember seeing something. Yeah.
And because
Like,
the
I-
1996
like a long
one
time
is the
ago.
one Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt. That's the one we all remember. But there's
Mhm.
also a 1989 one. And then, of course, there's been a countless number of rip-offs and spin-offs and
I don't
supposed
think
sequels.
it's like an actual I don't think it's like an actual redo. I think it's literally just it's literally there's an audience review on Google. It says, I'm old enough to have enjoyed the first film with Helen Hunt, and now comes a part 2 that it really is just another film that only follows the first. Which is weird. I don't think it actually has anything to do.
But it's in the same world.
I heard that like Helen Hunt was gonna have like a cameo or something at one point during the movie.
Yeah.
That's what I heard. that those were the rumors. Obviously, Bill Paxton and Philip Seymour Hoffman can't because they are unfortunately no longer with us. But Bill Paxton said for years that he wanted to do a sequel, so I can only imagine.
Oh, you know what? It is
that they
literally
commemorate
meant to
him.
be a part 2.
Yeah, it
Wild.
just happens to be that it's like it's sort of in the same world. It's kind of like Jurassic World was a sequel to Jurassic Park.
They're calling it a new chapter. The original movie made $495 million at the box office, which in '89 it seems like a
no,
lot
96.
Oh, okay.
That's the 96 version.
Damn. It's like, whoa,
yeah, the 89 was like some like dark comedy. It had Harry Dean Stanton and Crispin Glover in it. I didn't even know about it until he said something, so I was like, all right, sure, I guess, if you say so.
Yeah. I mean, I'm honestly just so excited. Daisy Edgar Jones is like enough reason for me to show up, but then we've got America's Newest Superman. Kiernan Shipka is in this too. So
yeah,
overall, like just a really solid cast.
I mean,
filming this had to have been a fucking nightmare. Can you imagine being in a wind machine for hours doing takes and takes and takes of this? I would probably want to die.
Well, if you've got that here, I think you'll be fine. So
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Clearly, he's having fun. I mean, they're both. This could be for the mainstream audience the breakout role that puts Daisy Edgar Jones in the spotlight for the average viewer, because I think she still flies under the radar.
If this does well, this will permanently cement Glenn Powell as like the new, because it's like he's gotten a lot of like work, but this like being in this big budget blockbuster, it's gonna cement him as like this will be the final nail of like him being, you know, the new.
He also played a supporting. Yeah, he played a supporting character in a lot of movies, which I was kind of surprised about.
Hitman got a lot of good reviews, so that showed like okay,
he can do it.
Yeah, I mean he was also he's the banker that Bane kind of slams his head in. And then goes like, you know, time
also,
to go.
If I speaking of storms, if I ever duck out during this,
there's a storm going outside my house.
My power is on the fritz, so I apologize in advance if I ever.
I haven't seen a good storm in a long time. I live in LA now. It never storms here.
Well, unfortunately for the rest of us, you know, we get weather who are not in LA.
No, I missed the storms. I missed Florida rain. It would rain like every day. It puts your ass to sleep. Y'all are gonna sleep great tonight.
That's true. Either that or I just put on some ASMR with rain, like, you know, on my TV.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Maybe that's what I do tonight.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, Angelina, I know you're gonna go watch this movie, right? Like, this is.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna like, what are we doing next? We sort of flipped up our rundown today, but Angelina, you have to fly. And speaking of,
I gotta bop out. Thanks for having me today, you guys.
We're gonna fly to the moon, and then on the other end, we're gonna talk about that movie. So thanks, Angelina.
The movie sucked. I'm sorry.
You dodged a bullet then.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Miss, you're on fire.
Very original. No, I do not want to stop, drop, and roll with you.
No, your book is on fire.
The space program is a bloated mess.
So tell me how this idea came about. Our associates, our head of film, Keenan, just was toying around with this idea of like, well, what if this conspiracy theory was true?
This conspiracy theory is that the moon landing was fake.
Yes, that's the one.
Oh, so you're gonna lie?
It's called selling. We're not lying to the customer. We're changing the way they think.
No, it's called lying.
Fly Me to the Moon. It's a movie that, for better or for worse, it's out there. It's out there. I mean, when I first saw the trailer, I was like, is this meant to be like a alternate history thing? What are they trying to do with this movie? Ultimately, I guess all it is, you know, they're leaning to the conspiracy theory that the moon landing was staged, which for this movie to come out in an election year, it's a little ballsy. I don't know if it's the best timing. I'm surprised it's not caught political fire, but I mean, there's plenty of other things that have been going on that will bury this in the headlines. But John,
once I figured out that it was going to involve like the fake moon landing conspiracy and it was directed by Greg Berlanti, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely not watching this. Awesome, great, because I mean, Greg Berlanti, yeah, he's a decent producer. Like, for every like horrible show he produced in the Arrowverse. He did produce some good stuff that was like post Arrowverse, like like Stargirl and Doom Patrol that were kind of leftovers from that, but he was more hands off. And Superman and Lois being the final one. Obviously, being a nerd, I gotta bring up DC stuff, and sorry, but like that's how it is. But then I cannot fucking tell you how absolutely sick and tired I am of hearing, oh, we didn't land on the moon. Like I still remember that like this some guy was like following Buzz Aldrin around, and he's like, oh, you say like, oh, we didn't land on the moon, right? We didn't land on the moon. And he just fucking sucker punched him in the face. He's like, I fucking landed on the fucking moon. Stop like saying that rhetoric, because it's bullshit. Okay. I didn't fucking like go up into space in a tin can that was held together by faith and bubblegum for you to talk shit to me about this shit. So like, once I saw that, I was like, all right, I'm glad I'm just so sick of that. Like, I'm just so sick of like the conspiracy that we didn't land. We landed on the moon. If you don't believe that, then you aren't allowed to vote. Like,
the Earth is round, it's not flat. You landed on the moon.
Yeah.
but I mean, this movie, I think, I don't know how to say this, but this movie, who wanted this movie to exist is what I'm trying to figure out. Not to mention, somebody gave this movie a budget of, you told me this, John, this movie had a budget of $100 million.
And that doesn't even count marketing, so who knows how it really is.
How did they convince investors to drop $100 million plus marketing, which they probably spent another $20 to $40 million on?
Big stars attached. It's got Channing Tatum, who was an it name at some point. He's not really as much anymore. And then Scarlett Johansson, oh, she was in Marvel, but she's kind of not. She's no longer in Marvel because her character is dead, and her last movie wasn't that great. So
she's got star power, but
she does have some star power, yes. But I feel like they are kind of downhill it stars, not like total dirt. Oh, we don't know who they are type of thing. Just like not as popular as they once were. So, and I feel like the studio, I don't know who produced this, but I feel like the studio relied heavily on, oh, the two of them. Like, okay, we have a Marvel girl and we have someone who was almost a Marvel guy, a Fox Marvel guy, but Marvel nonetheless. And we're like, okay, maybe that'll do something. And Anyone But You was a huge hit. Rom-coms are on the rise again. And it turns out it's like, no, people just wanted to see Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney fuck and her boobs. And that was pretty much why that did as well as it did. But this just is like, why do we care about this? The only thing decent about this movie, it seems, is that it shares the same name as a really great song. But that's kind of it.
I mean, what really surprised me is that Longlegs, which is a very low budget horror movie, relatively speaking, it's got a 10% of the budget of this film. It made like twice as much money at the box office as Fly Me to the Moon did, which it just blows my mind how that happened. But also it goes to show you, I think, that we live in a world today where star power only takes you so far.
Yes.
Scarlett Johansson has signed up to be part of the Jurassic World franchise, that she's going to be in the new trilogy of movies. They're bringing on other stars. She was the first one to jump on board, and that really helped, them kind of package those set of movies. So she's still got a lot of star power. Like, we looked at the video before the start of this segment, and she's out there promoting the film, and she's got a lot going for her, and she's, quite frankly, not only one of the best paid, but one of the most talented actresses in Hollywood today. Channing Tatum, yes, he's never been the best actor, but he has had his hits, and when you put his name on the marquee, he will draw an audience. But ultimately, I think we live at a time in Hollywood where movies need a little bit more than that. They need something extra, whether you're part of a big franchise or whether you're providing something uniquely different, something that grabs a zeitgeist, like Top Gun Maverick, like Barbie, like Oppenheimer did, which weren't franchise movies. Top Gun Maverick was part of a franchise, but you couldn't really say that in the same way that you would say Marvel, Star Wars, DC, because the first Top Gun movie came out like 30-something years ago. So for most people, they hadn't seen the first Top Gun, or really just only know it from like pop culture references. So, and for Barbie, of course, you know what Barbie is. You know what Super Mario
Yeah.
Bros. Are as a
Yeah.
franchise. But they were really, first movies, and that Fly Me to the Moon sort of falls into the same category as The Fall Guy, where you've got the star power, but ultimately the movie doesn't really go anywhere because nobody really knows what this movie's reason for existing is. And it's
Yeah.
also, I think, the premise of this movie wasn't enough to have $100 million budget in today's world.
Yeah.
This is, by the way, I looked this up. This is an Apple movie. This is another Apple movie where they dropped a ton of coin on it.
Argyle flopped too, so
Columbia Pictures released it. I think Columbia also released Argyle too. So Apple has now struck out with so many. I mean, it's becoming a,
which is funny because we were literally just talking about the Emmys, because TV, they're doing great.
They're doing great.
Masters, I've heard nothing but great things about Morning Show,
72
Masters of the Air. I think there was another documentary that, because my friend he's like, why is Apple TV just producing bangers in TV? Because there was a couple documentaries that were really good that were released on there. And just a lot of really good stuff on the TV side, but it feels like Killers of the Flower Moon, while critically acclaimed, it didn't win any of the Oscars it was nominated for and was a bomb. Argyle, critically panned, bomb. This critically audience score, okay, but not great. And then it's bombing hard. The fact that a rinky-dink horror movie made more money in its weekend than this did is just sad. I'm not even talking about more money in regards to its budget. I'm talking about literally more money, period. Longlegs made 30 million. This made 20 million. And it's even worse because, as you said, it's $100 million budget, and Longlegs was less than 10 million. So that's just terrible. Almost as bad as Channing Tatum in that weird turtleneck he's wearing. But what is that? Is it
That's
a turtleneck? Is it not?
That's a choice, is what that is.
It's a choice, and it's not a good one. But it was for the time, so I'm sure it was popular back then. But besides that, it's just it's I know people are in the comments gonna say, technically every movie ever made has been unnecessary, and I agree with that. Every movie ever made has been unnecessary because entertainment. Right. That's a whole discussion of the necessary idea of entertainment and escapism. That is a whole nother ball game and a whole nother discussion for another day. Very deep discussion. But it's just this is just kind of an anomaly. Okay, was this made for conspiracy theorists? Was this made for women who like rom-coms? Was it made for Channing Tatum fans? Was it made for Scarlett Johansson fans? Was it made for Marvel fans? It's just it's sort of one of those movies where it doesn't really have a demographic, and it's just kind of there.
A timing thing. It doesn't quite what's the reason for this movie to come out today? Now, here and now.
Yeah.
This is the kind of movie where I know and I appreciate Apple's commitment to a theatrical release. I love that, but it goes to show you a movie like this kind of a movie, if it drops on streaming, people watch it, people catch on to it, they're like, okay, great. Or it flies under the radar and nobody worries about it. But you drop it in theaters and people begin to wonder in the middle of the summer movie season, what is the reason for this movie to exist? And Apple, who they've got money to burn, they probably will walk away from this and be another lesson learned. But if this continues, their track record, they've now flopped 4 out of 4 because between Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Argyle, and now this.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Napoleon too. Yeah,
none of those movies made their budgets back. And the first 2 of those they spent almost $300 million on those. Yeah. And even Argyle was these are movies that have comic book movie budgets, but they're making horror movie money. Whereas you've got, and especially when you go up against the movie like Longlegs, which had a budget of $10 million. We're gonna get into that a little bit, and it made $30 million at the box office. It just becomes a situation where I think the premise of this movie was not strong enough. It's not timed to anything. And like you said, what is the audience? Are the people who think that we faked the moon landing? It's not even that particular thing has caught fire of late as a topic of discussion. So it just feels like a movie that kind of missed the mark with this marketing, with the timing, with the budget. And I don't think it's a reflection of Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson as stars. It's just we just live in a time where star power just doesn't sell movies the way it
Star power
used
doesn't
to.
exist anymore. This isn't old Hollywood.
It's
Even I
and
believe Quentin
yeah,
Tarantino has said this multiple times. It's like there's no stars anymore. There's
yeah,
stars, but there's not stars. Like
right,
you can't. There's no. It's not like oh, let's go see this movie because Elizabeth Taylor is in it.
right.
We don't have that anymore, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just like this is things evolve, things progress. We're just in a different
Yeah.
time, and it's just like there's no like the star power was dying in like the 2000s, but now it's just dead. There's nothing like you can't have like a marquee where it's like, oh yeah, Channing Tatum. That's not going to bring
Scarlett
people. Nobody
Johansson.
cares.
It's like it's
Nobody
not going.
cares.
And I think exactly, you've got a ex Marvel actor here, where Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow. Everybody knows her as Black Widow, but much like Robert Downey Jr., much like Chris Evans, none of these actors have really found success outside of Marvel at the level that they had in Marvel. And you just don't see that success translate because people are there to watch the characters, Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow, not the actors so much. And there's exceptions to the rule. I mean, yeah, Oppenheimer was a huge hit, but I don't think Oppenheimer was a huge hit because Robert Downey Jr. was in the marquee. I think Oppenheimer was a huge hit because it was a Christopher Nolan movie. It was part of Barbenheimer. That's why, not so much. And I think the same thing applies here. This movie really doesn't have anything that is sort of the key selling point.
Nothing.
And to the point where we were asking the question, wait, so this movie is about faking the moon landing? That's what we're... And it's kind of the same thing as like the Fall Guy, right? Like the core premise is sort of separate. Like you could take the core premise and completely remove it and make it a rom-com and then probably reduce the budget, because the Fall Guy could have been just Emily why am I forgetting her last name?
Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling in a rom-com for $30 million could have made its money back.
Yeah.
But they had to make it a big action blockbuster. Completely
And tied to an old TV show that not a lot of people remember. So
nobody remembers that show. And this movie,
all
the same
five
thing.
fans were happy to see Lee Majors in a post-credit scene, but Heather Thomas.
It's not like Jump Street, but even the Jump Street movies.
It had Johnny Depp. People remember Johnny Depp. People don't remember Lee Majors. So
yeah, but even so, those Jump Street movies are not like all-time classics. The ones with Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum because they were like part of the Jump Street franchise. They're all-time classics because they were really good movies, and it's not like they made hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office. They weren't like $1 billion franchise, and they didn't spend hundreds of million dollars making them. They were like, this is right now to me an example of the people who are in charge of the money at Apple Studios or Apple Original Film. They are learning some lessons here because they're starting to, because they're the ones making these movies.
One of the two.
Well, I mean, we'll see. But look, ultimately, I think this is just a choice where they thought this movie was going to be, something that's going to make money. Either that, or Apple just committed to the idea of throwing these movies out in the theater before you put it on streaming, and they're like, they know this is going to not be good, but they'll do it anyway.
I also wanted to add that but yeah, there was apparently another very limited release Apple movie called Fancy Dance that was released in late June, and it had Lily Gladstone and Shea Wiggum in it. Apparently that got released. Don't know. I'd never fucking heard of it before. And
see, now that movie's probably gonna go on and win all the Oscars, but like as far as
because like it has like 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. I did like a quick thing, and I'm like, all right, I guess this existed. And then you also had
this
Family
movie
Plan,
too.
which Family Plan was before Killers of the Flower Moon, even though that wasn't theatrically released, and that apparently sucked too. So Ghosted was terrible. I'm looking at like the list of movies right now, and the only one that like sticks out to me that was good was Tetris. That was like the only one. And then before that was Coda, which won the Best Picture Oscar. But outside of that, none of these are memorable. I don't even remember. And then the next movie they have, it's coming out in August. It's called The Instigators. It's a Doug Liman movie with Matt Damon and Casey Affleck. You have a John Watts movie coming out. And then you have a Steve McQueen movie coming out. And then F1, which we're both excited for now. But like, hopefully, it's hopefully it's good. If
Yeah.
this track record's now not great for Apple.
I think I for one am looking forward to F1. That trailer
Yeah,
like hooked me.
that looks good. I
That
will say
hooked
that
me.
looks good.
But again, there's something unique about that. Whereas I think this movie really doesn't, like, you know, I've seen reviews where they said "Fly Me to the Moon" is the wrong stuff, which is of course a
like,
reference to the right
stuff joke,
the right stuff, like one of the best movies from this genre. But yeah, at the end of the day, I just don't know what the reason for this movie existing is, other than the fact that, you know, Apple's just learning their lessons. Which, I mean, look, it's at least they're releasing it in a movie theater so people can watch it and not watch it. And then Apple has some hard data, unlike Netflix, which just doesn't even put them in movie theaters, and then they still
Right.
you know, flop or don't do well. But hey, 66% audience, 66% of the critics loved it, 90% of the audiences have loved it. So at least the people who did go to see it like it, and at least in the majority, the people like
My
it.
friend didn't. He's like, I almost fell asleep multiple times while trying to watch this thing. So
yeah,
who knows?
maybe you'll find success when it hits Apple TV Plus. If you guys have seen this movie, then let us know what you think about it. But right now, we're gonna actually do something special here. We've been doing this recently on the show, where we do everything on this channel for the love of movies, whether it's DC movies, whether it's good movies, bad movies, big franchise movies, small indie movies. True Lies is celebrating its 30th anniversary this week, so we wanted to highlight that. So let's do that. And on the other side, we're going to dive into the other movie that made headlines this week, which was Longlegs. And Longlegs did a lot better at the box office than Fly Me to the Moon. And speaking of the box office, True Lies was an unmitigated success at the box office and with critics back in the 90s. It's celebrating its 30th anniversary. Let's take a look back at one of the greatest Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, I think, of all time, and one of the best James Cameron movies of all time as well.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is a super spy romancing a femme fatale in a high-tech thriller called True Lies.
Tell me about your husband, Mrs. Tasca.
I mean, he's a sales rep for a computer company.
Let's go.
I married Rambo.
True Lies has stunts and special effects like I've rarely seen before, even in a Schwarzenegger movie. I don't have any hesitation voting thumbs up for True Lies, which shows Arnold Schwarzenegger back again as King of the Hill of the action star.
You're fired.
You're fired. Like that. That's, you know, again, just
God, that's
one of the greatest reasons why. Yes.
Great. I mean, I will say, I would almost say True Lies is kind of underrated, like a little bit, because it's like in the pantheon of James Cameron movies, you have the Terminator movies, you have Titanic, you have Aliens. True Lies doesn't get mentioned as much. That and The Abyss, they don't get mentioned as much. And True Lies is just, that is like an action comedy masterpiece. That is one of the few times a remake is better than the original, because it's a remake of some French movie. I forgot what it was called, but it was like, oh my God. And then you have Jamie Lee Curtis, who's like fucking excellent as always. And
I know exactly why you think Jamie Lee Curtis.
Okay, no, stop. That's not the reason why. That's not the reason why. Shut up.
I know you, John. I know exactly where you're going with that. But
yes, that is a very good part of the movie. Don't get me wrong. Not as good as her bit in Trading Places, if you know what I mean. But you know, but she was still really funny in that. She was like the interrogation scene where she like hits the stool against the window and she's like, I didn't do anything sexual, like that. And then Bill Paxton being a fucking total like sleazy coward is great.
Yeah.
Going back to Twister, we have Bill Paxton again. Oh God, I gotta watch True Lies now. That's such a fucking great movie. It's so good. Watch True Lies, guys. Fucking watch that shit. It's so good.
I can't believe that movie is 30 years old. I mean, but I remember when we were talking, me and Catriona is one of our editors. She puts together these fantastic video packages. And I was like, okay, so what movie anniversaries can we, you know, dive into next? Because we have been talking about like Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, Lion King, which we'll dive into later as well. It's also celebrating 30 years this summer. But, you know, True Lies comes up and I'm like, okay, let's do this. But remember to find that, you know, one-liner that Arnold hits the bad guy with before he kills him off at the end of the movie, because Of course, we need that. We were talking about flying to the moon earlier.
All of us.
Yeah. It's just nowadays star power isn't really a thing, but the 80s and the 90s were literally where star power was all that.
Like you had that
Arnold
pissing
Schwarzenegger
contest between Sly and Arnold. Like that was a huge thing of the 80s and 90s.
Exactly. So I mean, but hey, look, we're not gonna be talking. Let's keep the ball rolling here. We're talking about Longlegs, John. This is a movie that, quite frankly, came out of nowhere because for most people, they didn't even know that what this movie is about. I looked at this and I'm like, wait, it's another horror movie that's counter programming, Fly Me to the Moon. But when you look at the box office numbers, it might have been counter programming, but it actually ended up making more money than Fly Me to the Moon did. It wasn't the number one movie at the box office. Despicable Me made over $40 million and continued to hold the crown. And $43.6 million is a huge number for its second weekend at the box office. But when you look past that at the new movies of the weekend, Longlegs came in second, John, with 22.4 million, which is way more than the 9.4 that Fly Me to the Moon did. So you went and saw it. Why do you think this movie deserved the success that it did? And what is it about this movie that makes it different? Because horror movies are a dime a dozen these days. Not everything hits well. You've got the Halloween franchise. You got the Scream franchise. Why is this movie something unique and different?
Because I think it's definitely one of those cases where it's I think don't get me wrong, horror movies, I think we have a good year for horror because Abigail, I've heard, is really good. I haven't watched a bunch of them. I've been really behind on movies. I'm trying to watch catch up on them. But everyone's telling me Abigail was excellent. That was the vampire ballerina girl. That was it was one of those really fun horror, a action horror comedy kind of thing. And then you had Late Night with the Devil, which was released on Shudder, and that had David Dastmalchian in it. And I've heard that was absolutely excellent in every which way. But this was definitely one of my most anticipated films of the year. I'm a big horror fan. So, and the thing is, I have seen all of Osgood Perkins' films before this, which was Blackcoat's Daughter, I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, and Gretel and Hansel. Now, if you think that name might be familiar to any, casual horror fans watching, Osgood Perkins is actually the son of Anthony Perkins, who famously played Norman Bates in all of the Psycho films. So he is, you could maybe say Nepo baby, maybe not, but I think he's more than earned his keep as a horror director, because pretty much every single one of his films to me has been excellent. Outside of Gretel and Hansel, it was trying too hard to be the witch and it just didn't hit the landing, but it still had some good ideas. And Longlegs, as I think, adds to that pantheon of great films for me. Blackcoat's Daughter was excellent. I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives at the House. It was a masterpiece to me. I was amazed with how much I love that movie. I am the outlier there. Don't watch. It's on Netflix. I would say you could try to watch it, but I'm an outlier. Most people really didn't like that movie, so don't expect anything. And Gretel and Hansel was an interesting time, but Longlegs, I watched the trailer so many times. I was so excited for this movie. Usually when it comes to highbrow art films, Neon and A24 usually hit really well. And I really liked Micah Monroe. She was, kind of was made famous in It Follows, but she's also, done some more films outside of that. And then you have Nick Cage, who's just, when he chooses to be great, when he's not just, in Willy's Wonderland and shit like that, when he wants to be good, he will be good. And that's what he was here, because in something like Pig, which was one of my favorite movies of 2021, arguably my favorite, he hits here. Both Micah Monroe gives a very understated performance. She's very cold. She's very but there's a reason why. And then Nick Cage is just so fucking creepy. He just hits. He absolutely.
John, before you go any further, I don't want. What is the basic plot of this movie?
The best I can compare this to is if you took Silence of the Lambs, Seven, and 70s horror and put it in a blender, you get this. So, however, it's not for the faint of heart. I watch horror movies a lot. As I said, I'm a horror fan. So rarely does anything scare me. Because I watch blood and guts. I watch high tension, like sort of stuff. Not the film High Tension. I have not seen the film High Tension yet. Heard it's great, but I have not, I see all these movies. I see a lot of these movies. I love them dearly. I went to go see this in the theater with friends of mine because we all love horror movies, and we all, I personally was super excited for this. When I tell you that me and another buddy of mine who was a big, big horror fan, who was also numb to horror movies, when we saw this movie in the theater, knowing only from what the trailer showed, which is not a lot, very good trailer, barely spoils anything, effective trailer. We watched this and we were both horrified. We were scared of this movie. And as someone who is not scared a lot by horror movies, that is saying something. So I just want to put that out there. This is a very divisive movie. Got a lot of people loving it, got a lot of people hating it. But I would say this might be my favorite movie of the year so far. Like, this was Mr. Perkins, wherever your father is in the known universe, I know he is looking down very proud of you, because this was definitely an achievement. I still prefer I'm the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. That's probably my favorite of his films. But this was just an achievement. Most definitely. This was like, and it's not one of those movies, there's effective horror, there's a lot of tension. And what I also loved about this movie is effective jump scares. Now, if you know anything about me, the thing I absolutely despise in modern horror movies is the use of jump scares. Because jump scares, more often than not, are fake out jump scares, where it's something like somebody, like red herrings, where someone just like grabs somebody's shoulder and then there's like a loud sound, and then it's just like, oh no, it's just a friend sneaking up on you. It's like, that's not fear, that's not scary, that's just like, oh, and then you're like, ha ha ha. You're not supposed to feel ha 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 during a horror movie. What I love when it comes to horror movies is the atmosphere and the suspension, the tension. This movie, how Osgood Perkins deals with shadows, lighting, and atmosphere is just amazing. Like how he handles like a room, like what he does, because it's like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like when you're there's like a focus on the character, but then you're like, okay, because I watch so many horror movies, because there's great directors put like stuff in like the background to like fuck with your mind, and I'm like, I know Osgood Perkins does that when there's like a pair of eyes like staring at you. Like if I were to do that, it would be like in the corner, like right here, like just staring at you, just because that like fucks with your head and like subconsciously scares you. And that's what I love. I love it when directors do that. His command for the screen and his the shadows, like here, right, Micah Monroe outside in the darkness with the only light coming from her house, the brilliant scene. And then there's also scenes in like broad daylight that scare you. And Nick Cage is just like, the unpredictability of a serial killer is just beyond like frightening. It's like he makes Hannibal Lecter look like a fucking pussy. Like, this dude is just embodiment of fear, and it just works. And what I also like about this is it's very simple. It's just like, okay, they're after this guy, they need to find him, but it's so simple with how it does that. It's simply like, homicide case, serial killer case, boom, there you go. But what it does underneath the surface and how it scares you is just perfect. perfect. It's so perfect with how it does. Like, I can't think of anything wrong with it. There's maybe a couple scenes where Nick Cage goes like crazy Nick Cage that can maybe be a little laughable.
He Nick Cages out a little bit too much.
Yeah, he Nick Cages out a little, like a couple times, but like he goes like, for me, he like goes beyond the comedy and then becomes scary again with how he does it. Ooh, it was so good. Like Nick Cage, like I know he gets a lot of shit because it's like he goes crazy, or he does like stuff like Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent where he's like making fun of himself and then like all this other shit. So, but like when he wants to give a great performance, he will give a great performance. And Micah Monroe, she's a new scream queen. She's killing it. And I'm stoked for Osgood Perkins' next movie. I hope like with the marketing with this was also really good. Like how they were like kind of giving off like clips of like they didn't release a trailer for long, but like a clip here and like stuff like distorted imagery and kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like the marketing for this movie was really, really good. So I think hopefully Osgood Perkins, because of this, yes, it's divisive, but I think enough people like it, and it's got enough buzz that like he gets more promising work in the future and he can hone his craft even further. But he's become one of my favorite horror filmmakers working today. One of my favorite filmmakers working today, period. If I had to pick a top three, it would be Mike Flanagan, Robert Eggers, and Osgood Perkins might be my top three. Horror and maybe even ever. I'm so excited for Nosferatu later this year. That's going to be another horror film. If Robert Eggers hits again, that's going to be like another like tremendous. So I can't tell you how many times I've watched that trailer. I'm so excited for it. But yeah, I would say Longlegs it's not going to be for everybody. I want to recommend it because I love it so much and I want other people to experience it and love it. But you might come out of it hating it. But I would say still go see it for the experience. Because one, support your local movie theaters. Because we need theaters to get as many wins as we can. We can't let the idea of cinema die out because it's just too integral and too important for it to die out. And it's an experience of a movie. Like it's like a wild and crazy experience. And I think that needs to be experienced by everybody. And I just love the movie so much. I just want as many people to see it and be as freaked out as I was. But when I have trouble sleeping after seeing a horror movie, that's when you know it did good. The last time I felt like that was probably when I went to go see Us in college. That was another one where it freaked the hell out of me. That was another really good, really excellent movie. But yeah, I would highly recommend it. But the thing is, I would say recommendation asterisk as sort of like, hey, you might not like it. So like, just keep that in mind. It's weird. It's kind of surreal. Even if it is simple, just keep that in mind. It's just like, I just can't. I normally do reviews with friends of mine. We didn't get a chance to do it. And I just wanted to talk about this movie because I loved it so much. So that's enough of me filibustering. But I would say
I did want to. Yeah, I mean, look, the movie. If you guys have not already been convinced, if you're not a horror fan, that's one thing. But if you want a good story and you don't mind watching a horror movie, or if you are a big horror fan, this is looking like the best horror movie of the year. I mean, the critic scores are great. The audiences seem to love it. What I did want to quickly touch upon is we talked about Fly Me to the Moon earlier. There's a great article in the LA Times today that I read, which talks about really why a movie like Fly Me to the Moon doesn't work or hasn't worked, whereas why Longlegs, on the other hand, made not only just his money back, it's making a profit just in opening weekend alone. What do you think, John? Because according to this article, it's really comes down to the question of who is this movie made for? Why? How is it gonna bring the audiences out to a movie theater? Because with so many options to watch at home, video games, movies, TV shows. We were talking about the Emmy nominations earlier.
Right.
There's so much to do where you don't have to actually make a trip out to the movie theater where you're going to pay $15 for popcorns, another $20 for a movie ticket, and then sit and watch 20 minutes of trailers. What reason does Longlegs give to the audience members that a movie like Fly Me to the Moon doesn't give? Like, why do you think one movie did so much better at the box office than the other one?
I think it was partly, as I was saying before, successful marketing. When it gets weird, when the marketing gets weird, people are intrigued more. It was mysterious and weird marketing, and I think people really liked that. And then a trailer that doesn't show a lot, that I think that gets people roped in, especially if it's a horror movie. If it's a horror movie that doesn't show a lot, I think people are roped in a little bit more. And I think it's just like a lot of people, like, I think, recognize Nick Cage. I know we were talking about star power and all that, but I think Nick Cage is kind of going through a renaissance a little bit. Micah Monroe is a new name, so I think people are seeing it for that. Not a lot, but I think a niche side of it. And I think there are a lot of horror fans out there that are looking for something great. And this, I think, offered something. And we're kind of in the age of what people deem elevated horror. It's a term I absolutely despise because, believe it or not, horror has always been elevated. It's just now the people who are embarrassed to watch horror movies are now calling it elevated horror because they're embarrassed that they like horror movies. So they have to call it elevated horror because it's like, oh, it's not like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's like, bitch, fucking horror has always been elevated. It's just like your pretentious ass is finally liking them and you can't admit it to yourself that you like horror movies. But if I were to have to use the term, this kind of falls into that. And I think people are intrigued with that. So I think there's that as well. So I think there's a lot of different aspects. And then it also borrows into what I think a lot of people are into now, kind of the true crime thing, where it's, I mean, you had True Detective, right? Night Country. That did really well.
Dexter is coming back, right? Like
Dexter's coming back. They have the prequel show. People are into the maybe I think that might be the biggest thing is people are into true crime. Like, I mean, that's why Baby Reindeer was like doing so well. That was based on a true story. And even though this isn't based on a true story, it still involves like the police, FBI tracking a serial killer. And I think people are just really into that. So I think they just, want to buy into that more. I think that would be, I think the marketing and that, and, Nicolas Cage's renaissance a little bit, I think adds into it as well.
Is that the term?
Maybe you got Renaissance for Brendan Fraser, and then you have Cageissance for him. And also, like, there's more of us out there than you think. There's a lot of horror fans. We just don't talk much because we're always indoors watching horror movies. So, like, we just don't get out much. But I would say, I think there's a lot of aspects that get added to that Fly Me to the Moon doesn't really do. And I'm not saying that as a guy who loves horror and hates rom-coms. I'm looking at someone who's like trying to be as unbiased as possible. Just trying to look at it as a guy has studied film and being like, okay, where does this, and I just Fly Me to the Moon, those things don't really add up. Well, I think Longlegs, it hits those aspects, like the really clever marketing. Yeah. The clever marketing and all, and like the true crime. And I think that adds up. And a lot of people like that. And the thing is, it's not like bloody gory because that might turn a lot of people off. It can be a little gross at times, but it's not like heavily gory. So that might be another thing as well. But go watch Longlegs. Don't watch Fly Me to the Moon. Longlegs is great. Fly Me to the Moon is crap. Go watch Longlegs. Well, hey, I don't know. Fly Me to the Moon could be great, but people are missing out on it. I don't know.
It depends on your taste.
I haven't seen it, so I can't actually judge. I'm just joking, but just saying, go watch Longlegs.
Well, ultimately, guys, if you went and saw either of those movies or just one, let us know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you're in the live chat, as we have a lot of you guys watching today, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We're not done with the show yet. In fact, we have got lots to come. We're gonna be doing a DCU Daily subtopic. We've got lots to talk about in DCU Daily today, so we're gonna get into that. But before we get into DCU Daily, we are going to look at another one of those movies that's celebrating its 30th anniversary this summer. In fact, in a theater near you, you might be able to go and watch it playing back for its 30th anniversary. Kind of like, they throw movies back out in theaters. I think Titanic recently did its 25th anniversary, not this year, but maybe the year like last year or the year before that, we recently had the Star Wars: The Phantom Menace get a re-release for its 25th anniversary. But alongside True Lies, we know that The Lion King is celebrating its 30th anniversary as well. And that is back in a movie theater near you. So if you want to go watch it on a big screen, once again, not the animated Lion King from a few years ago, which is supposed to be live action but was all animated. Let's call it CGI Lion King. I'm talking about the OG Lion King, which in my opinion is probably the greatest animated movie of all time. And so for the love of movies, let's reminisce and let's look back at Pride Rock, Mufasa, Simba, the characters that we grew up with. So let's take a look back at the Lion King, and then on the other side, guys, we will have for you DCU Daily.
You see, he lives in you. Remember.
Well, that was The Lion King. I'm excited. I'm really, really excited for The Lion King because I haven't seen it in a long time and I can go watch it in a movie theater. I would really love to go check it out. John, what did you, before we dive into this, do you have any memory of The Lion King that you really, kind of look back and reminisce about?
I mean, I love the movie. Like, I remember, you know what I remember? I know it's like kind of different because it's not the movie. I remember renting Lion King 1.5 a lot because I think that came around this, because Lion King was technically before my time, before I was born. But I mean, I've seen the movie, great movie. Not my favorite Disney movie, but I remember watching Lion King 1.5 a lot because I thought it was like the funniest thing ever. Because I mean, it's based on I forget what the spinoff of Hamlet is. Rammerstein and something are dead. So I felt that was really funny. So I thought that was the funniest thing. But yeah, Lion King is great. I remember, I think if I were to remember anything from Lion King, like when I watched it when I was older, and there's like the scene, like, can you feel the love tonight? And it's just like, you see Nala, it's like, bro, she is totally giving Simba fuck me eyes. Like, goddamn. Like,
of course,
Jesus
that's where you go
Christ. But
Yeah.
they really, like, I bet you that like a shit ton of furries were birthed from that fucking scene. Cause like, goddamn. But like, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And because I'm watching this movie with friends, I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, why did they go so hard for this? It's a lioness. Calm down, guys. Jesus Christ. But anyway, it's not like The Road to El Dorado or anything like that. Like, damn.
You just
but,
okay. I didn't think you were gonna try to ruin my childhood by going there, but
here we are. Here we are.
And
it's also even more fucked up because it's allegedly that they're cousins, because there's only one male lion in the entire tribe. So there's that as well. There's no other male lions outside of Scar, and Nala isn't the child of Scar. So like, who is she the child of, guys? Anyway, let's move on.
Okay, let's move on. All right, let's do this. Let's start this proper. Welcome to another episode of DCU Daily, and we're today just getting back into the swing of things, talking about Superman once again. But Superman has been spending a good chunk of 2 months, 6 weeks, I think James Gunn said, filming out in Cleveland. They still have some filming to do in Ohio, so they're not quite done with the state of Ohio yet. But John, they have wrapped up basically filming in Cleveland, and so James Gunn has been talking about, just the debt of gratitude that he owes to the city of Cleveland for lending, its resources, its streets, its buildings, its amazing, people who were extras and background actors on the movie. They have spent, like I said, 6 weeks shooting out there. What are your thoughts about what the movie did? Again, shooting so much of it on location, from Progressive Field to shooting in downtown Cleveland on Public Square, just literally taking over 4 or 5 different big locations, and now they're moving on to Cincinnati. But it's just been a big presence out in Cleveland, the birthplace of Superman, no less. What are your thoughts about where this movie currently stands, and of course, then we're gonna dive into where it's going next.
Yeah, it's just like this is so crazy, and I remember seeing the comments on the last couple DC dailies we've done where it's like people are just like, damn, it's like there's so much outside filmmaking for this, which is crazy because it's like obviously we were making those Marvel comparisons, but even outside of that, like we rarely see like a movie, like even like Madam Web, which was filming in New York, like we didn't see anything for that, maybe because nobody really cares about Madam Web, but like even with this, it's just like it's so interesting like seeing people get pumped for this. Like I'm sure you have a lot of detractors that are like, and I'm not talking just about like Snyder fans, I'm talking about people that are like, oh, this looks so tacky, this looks stupid, like the bowl cut on Guy Gardner looks terrible, the suits look terrible, and it's just like I mean sure you're gonna have those detractors, but like at the same time it's just like I've seen a lot of people that are really pumped for this, that are just like maybe because like I surround myself with so many Superman groups, like I'm in those groups a lot. So that might be the reason why, but I just feel like God, that shot always gets me. Brilliant as always. It just like it's just like it's hitting, and it's just like it's nice to see like people are getting pumped for DC again. Like obviously you have people, I'm still cautious, like it could suck, so who knows, but like you have people that are like getting into it. Like I remember when David Corenswet, like when the first set photos were released of him, like a bunch of people like who I'm friends with who don't really have like a toe in like either DC or Marvel that are like, damn, this actually makes me want to go and watch it. Like they're like, who knows? But like they're like, oh, honestly, this is like exciting now. This is like really, really interesting. So I think, yeah, I think this was the one I was referring to in terms of the comments, but it just like, and then you have like, and then you had that video of like all the like Guy Gardner being like, we got it handled, guys, and then like all these fucking kids that are just like Superman, and it's just like like it's so fucking cute. It reminds me of the Brazilian Superman, which James Gunn, I know he's not cameoing in this movie, but he better cameo in the fucking sequel because I fucking love that guy. I love watching his videos. But yeah, I mean, it just like there was that famous Action Comics pose where it's all the kids like surrounding him, and it's so cute. He's just like smiling, and he seems like genuinely happy to just be surrounded by people who like appreciate and care about him. And it's just like he's like, man, I fucking love doing this so much. And yeah, I just hope to do this.
Ooh, sorry. It just, to me, what's wonderful is just the clearly the gratitude that James Gunn is showing, to Cleveland, the city of Cleveland, the people of Cleveland, from just the wonder of watching a movie being made. I've been on sets where you get to see people just kind of like hanging about, and they start seeing things happen. They're like, that's how you do that in the movie, and it's just you see their eyes light up and the movie magic happen in front of their eyes. Whether it's the stunt sequences or where you've got like David Corenswet walking around literally with the suit on, you're like, that is Superman. That Superman just walked by me. Like that was Green Lantern. Like that's Nathan Fillion right there. It's just there's this sense of enjoyment, this wonder that we watch superhero movies where superheroes exist everywhere. So the public in the movie doesn't really quite see that same level of awe and excitement, because they're like, oh yeah, there's a superhero around every corner, like in the MCU, right? There's just this giant like rock monster sticking out of the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Nobody cares. But like you see a movie like these being made, and then you see like how not only the people who are on set, but also just the people who are walking about nearby. Like it's just, you start to see the wonder and the joy of the crowd. I think like in on this particular day, this is I believe from late last week or the middle of last week, where this shooting Superman kind of like, being in this hole in the ground. I don't know whether he gets tossed into it, slammed into it, and he has to fight his way out of it. There's a lot of extras on set, but then there's a photo that I'm looking for where you see this, really cute dog just walk on the set dressed like Superman. It's just, I'm sure it's some crew member or just one of the background actors or somebody just, there's a really cute dog walking around, and James Gunn's like, I gotta go and say hello. And it's this is the kind of thing
I
where,
can imagine that, like, I would like to imagine, like, it was some onlooker that just brought his dog, and he's like, all right, fuck. And James Gunn is like, this is my kryptonite, doggos. Because, I mean, he posts a lot of pictures of his dogs on his threads and his Instagram. So I'm sure, like, they were like, hey, I got James Gunn to pet my dog. And it was like, it's one of the best dog breeds, Golden Retriever. It's one of my favorites. But yeah, I think I like to think like they're like, I got James Gunn to pet my dog, and it's just like, it's cute as fuck. He's so fluffy.
It's so fluffy, like that Despicable Me where Agnes with the unicorn. I love that too. But yeah, I mean 6 weeks, dude. Like they shot so much of the movie there. According to some estimates, if you go by like the $11 million tax credit that they got for this movie from Cleveland, they spent almost $40 million just in Cleveland alone. Just, I mean, and or maybe if you combine, I mean, actually, I'm gonna correct myself. The Greater Cleveland Film Commission gave this movie an $11 million tax credit, and if you look at the requirements for what qualifies this movie for that amount of tax credit, and you do the math and you kind of work your way backwards, they have spent almost $40 million in Cleveland filming this movie. And if you look at the total number of shots and I think one of the news outlets mentioned roughly a quarter of this movie was shot in Cleveland. That's a big number. I mean, and Cleveland is where, Joe Siegel, Jerry Schuster created the character of Superman. They actually have a number of monuments to the character of Superman in Cleveland. So it's just the significance of that, I think, takes it all to a whole nother level. And it wasn't that they just went there to shoot Superman sequences. We were talking about this the other day. They shot fight scenes in a baseball field where the Metropolis Meteors will be playing, which was the progressive field within the real life Cleveland Guardians play. They shot in front of the PNC Center, which doubled as the Metropolis Museum of Modern Art, a MoMA there. They've got the public square where Superman saves a squirrel, he saves a girl, he saves a dog. Like Superman basically did just about everything except save a cat out of a tree in Cleveland for this movie. And
they already got that on the sound stages. They couldn't control a cat, so they're like, all right, we gotta CGI in a cat.
Exactly. And even on days when they were shooting stuff and you didn't have actors out there, like I mean the town hall of course lit up in Superman colors for a night. This was around I think 4th of July weekend too.
And because it's like red, white, and blue, but you see the tip is yellow.
But you see the yellow, like just the yellow up there. They also, had James Gunn on set on the days that they were not shooting anything with principal actors. They were just shooting a car crash sequence and with stunt teams. And they had closed off the Detroit Superior Bridge for a number of days. It's just they went to, from City Hall to where the Guardians play on their field, to the PNC Center, to Public Square. They were shooting at this place called the Arcade yesterday, I think, right? They were shooting some interior sequences in what looks like a completely Art Deco sort of a building, which again just fits
a little
the
bit
vibe
Art Deco. Looks like a Greco-Roman a little bit. I think more Greco-Roman than Art Deco, but yeah, it kind of has like that vibe, that old school vibe that I think they're going for. But yeah, wait, can you go back to the group picture with all of them? I want to, because I think no, the one where they're at dinner. Because I love this face Nathan Fillion is making. Like he's like trying to make a selfie, and he just is like, it looks like he's like holding in a fart like real badly. And so like I don't know why that just made me laugh. But just something I want to notice here. Try to zoom in on Corenswet and then Blake Hart in the back. I have a theory. So you can kind of see a little bit, not totally, that Blake Hart kind of looks like a slightly older David Corenswet. So my theory is one of two things. It's either he's Bizarro, But he is also the same age range. I think he's in his early 40s as who James Gunn wanted for Jor-El. So my theory is that Blakeheart is playing Jor-El because he looks a lot like David Corenswet. Not totally, but enough like for like a dad to look like your son. And that's, again, I have another theory. This is my theory yesterday was that, oh, Parasite is Ultraman and they're just using that suit of Ultraman to like fuck with fans because James Gunn knows us and he's like, they're gonna get pictures and I want to get a one up on them. And then so Stephen Blakeheart, I believe his name is, right?
Yeah, which was, he just got tagged on that post the other day when James Gunn put out the logo of the film officially for the first time, and we were like, people were like, wait, why does he? Because we didn't know he was part of the cast until then. I mean, hey, look, James Gunn doesn't have to announce every cast member joining the team. The movie is so big, and you have so many. I mean, and Stephen Blakehart's probably not playing a leading role either, like you said. But that's a good theory.
He's 56, which might be a little bit too old, but he looks. I think he can pull off like late 40s, or sorry, late 30s, early 40s.
Well,
I think he can pull that off.
Is he meant to look like the Jor-El when he died? Is that what you're going for?
Yeah, because I mean, I remember seeing James Gunn say like, "Oh, I don't want to pick a Jor-El that's in his 70s." So even though Stephen Blakehart's a little bit older than what I think James Gunn was attending, the fact that he's worked with this guy before, and maybe he was like, "Huh, this guy kind of looks like my Superman that I'm gonna use a little bit, like maybe like a little bit thinner." A little bit like a little bit more gaunt than David Corenswet, who like fills out a little. I mean, he built so much muscle that he kind of filled out his face a little bit. But I can kind of see him being like, he could maybe be his dad. Like, obviously, it's not going to be perfect, but like he looks a lot like him. So this is theory number 2 of the week, guys, from your good boy Johnny S. That Stephen Blakeheart is, I think, playing Jor-El. So I think Ultraman is really Parasite, and he's going to CGI over the guy in post, and then Stephen Blakeheart is our Jor-El, but we haven't released it yet because maybe that reveals a spoiler or something. So that's my theory.
They did film some scenes that were completely closed off on the rooftop of one of the buildings that they were shooting at yesterday in Cleveland. And then they were all shooting some stuff inside in some interior scenes where there were some extras on the outside looking in. So clearly they were shooting inside out, but also some dialogue sequences, I'm sure, where they were completely trying to make sure that there was security there to ensure nobody was getting any kind of shots of what was going on. So yes, it's very possible they were shooting something spoilery involving Stephen Blakeheart that could have to do with the movie's plot, even if it is just Superman sort of seeing like a flashback sequence of some kind, some kind of or maybe like how Russell Crowe's character comes into Man of Steel, like his Jor-El is there as a projection of Jor-El rather than just the real Jor-El. There were some other posts. It seems like James Gunn did a bit of a Q&A on Threads today, or he just went in. I mean, he had some time on his hands after doing 6 days a week filming for 6 weeks in Cleveland. He finally got some time, and James Gunn, being the workaholic that he is, the great filmmaker that he is, he keeps himself busy. And instead of laying on his back and just resting for a day, he just jumped on the internet and started answering questions. So here, somebody was asking about, is Paradise Lost still in production? And James Gunn basically said, it's not in production until it's greenlit, which we know most recently the Lanterns TV series was greenlit at HBO. For a release on Max as an HBO original. But Paradise Lost, while announced, he says that it's like a lot of other titles that were announced as part of that big slate announcement, Chapter 1 and Part 1, Gods and Monsters. It's not officially greenlit yet because they don't really have scripts that they have approved. What do you think about this idea? And then what does this tell us? Because James Gunn also mentioned Superman, Supergirl, Penguin, Peacemaker, Lanterns, and a couple other, let's see, a handful of animated projects, which I assume includes the Harley Quinn show, the Kite Man series, Batman Cape Crusader. Those are all greenlit. We know they have release dates. Like Batman Cape Crusader starts releasing tomorrow, or is that August?
No, Kite Man. Hell yeah, is releasing tomorrow.
So
Cape
we have
Crusaders August 1st.
August 1st. So we know those things have dates, release dates. Supergirl, Superman, the movies have release date. Penguin doesn't have an exact release date, I don't believe, right? But
Yeah.
it's in September.
I
Peacemaker season
believe
2.
Peacemaker season 2, we don't have anything yet, but that's probably going to be sometime after Creature Commandos, which is in December. It's going to start in December. So it's probably going to go from December into January with the amount of episodes it has, I believe. And then Superman and Lois, it was October. I don't remember if it had a specific day yet, but that's due to come out in October.
Yeah. So I mean, and Joker Folio Do, of course, has a release date.
Also in
October.
October, yes.
So at the end of the day, what do you think this tells us about the slate? Because we have other projects like Teen Titans, the movie. The script is being written by Ana Negreira, who wrote the script for Supergirl. That one, I guess, is not greenlit. So like, what does that tell? Do you think there's a chance some of these projects will fall away, or because they're not greenlit? Because of course, for example, they passed on the Arkham Asylum TV series, or does that mean that Paradise Lost might still get greenlit at some point?
I think like he has a plan for this, but sometimes plans fall. Like things change. Things can get retconned, and maybe Paradise Lost, maybe that falls to the wayside, but maybe another Wonder Woman project comes up. Maybe something about maybe not Wonder Woman, but maybe like Donna Troy or Cassie Sandsmark, or like something else in regards to the Amazon, maybe something about the gods of Olympus, something like that. I think Wonder Woman lore is rich enough that you could probably do something else if Paradise Lost doesn't get greenlit. But I feel like everything on James Gunn's slate is gonna get greenlit because I feel like he has enough power, as well as Peter Safran, to be like, this is part of my vision and this is going to be released. Because Arkham was kind of an extra thing that Matt Reeves was doing that was initially part of the Batman universe, but then it became part of the DCU. And so it's like, okay, so that was not really a huge thing. Like, I feel like all the extra stuff won't be as big as like the stuff that's initially planned. Like, so Superman, not Legacy, Superman the movie, Superman 2025, James Gunn's Superman, whatever you want to call it, The Authority, Brave and the Bold, Supergirl, and Swamp Thing. Those are going to be a priority in terms of film. Then you have Creature Commandos, Waller, Lanterns. I have my list: Paradise Lost and Booster Gold. Those are going to be the priority. So stuff like Teen Titans, which was announced later, I don't think that's going to be as big of a priority. And as well as the Blue Beetle animated series, and then anything else that gets added to the slate won't be as big of a priority in terms, or like the Gotham Central show, if that's still happening.
I don't know what's going on with that. I mean, it's
who knows.
Matt Reeves seems like he still can't figure out the script for Batman Part 2. Does he have time for anything else?
But yeah, I think those 10 projects are going to be like, those are going to be like the prime level. Okay, this is stuff we have to work on. Well, anything else kind of falls to the wayside. And that's why Arkham Asylum kind of got swept under the rug, because it's like, that's not really a priority. It was announced much later. We're kind of setting up the vision of the DCU that we originally announced, and that's what we're going to do. So, we're not getting a teaser. So there you go.
What are your thoughts on that itself? Because
I mean, that makes sense.
When
They're
I
still
saw
shooting.
that,
they're still filming.
I get it, but I'm like, you could give us something. Maybe some more images. Maybe
I would say images. I
feel
feel like we would get images. Like maybe we can get like a few people that from like behind the scenes, like they did like a photo shoot. And we got like Superman and Lois and Jimmy Olsen in like famous poses that are recognizable, that showcase like them in their form. So I could see that. That's funny. I could see that. I could see them doing that. Like, oh, here's some images. Unfortunately, we're still shooting, so we can't give you a lot, but we can give you this. So I feel like Creature Commandos is going to be a big thing at Comic-Con, because I mean, I'm sure they have some of the animation done for that, so we'll probably getting a little bit of that, maybe some animatics. We'll maybe get some animatics of that, maybe some voice work. But yeah, that, and then maybe we'll get some more announcements in terms of writers and directors for projects and showrunners if stuff is greenlit. So I love that picture where he just looks so badass. He just like, yeah,
Just looks like a
I've
Jedi
returned.
master.
But yeah, so I think we'll be getting. There's enough. Unfortunately, we won't be getting a lot of Superman stuff, but I feel like we're gonna be getting a lot of DCU stuff. So that's like announcements, Creature Commandos, maybe Peacemaker season 2. We'll get some Peacemaker season 2 stuff. So I feel like that's what it's less Superman, more of the other stuff, which because we've gotten so much. I feel like James Gunn is like, okay, these people have gotten their set photos. We've given them so much to work with, to analyze, to talk about. Let's give some other things a chance, like Creature Commandos, which kind of has not been in the forefront. Peacemaker season 2, which hasn't been in the forefront, and then possible other DC projects that are not officially part of that, like Cape Crusader and Kite Man and Harley Quinn and all that stuff. So I think that as well is like going to be, showcased.
No, I agree. I think it's also just a testament to how busy they are at DC Studios. Like, DC Studios wasn't an entity not that long ago, and they've gone from that to basically not only getting rid of stuff that they don't want to be a representation of DC, but then bringing up like a dozen projects from scratch, and then also shooting. James Gunn is busy shooting a feature film while also directing a couple episodes of Peacemaker, and they've already got 3 other movies in progress, some stages along the way, whether it's Titans being written, Supergirl is heading into pre-production, and even The Authority might be somewhere along the way. You got Lanterns, got greenlit, it's got a whole writer's room behind it already. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see how quickly this whole DCU comes together. That's what we're here, DCU Daily. We're going to have so much to talk about. It's like the MCU is where it is today because of its success and consistency over time, although that hasn't been true for the last several years, but it's still, for many a years was, more hits than misses. And I think the DCU could do with something similar. Now, getting back to Superman itself, the movie, they are not done filming, as we talked about earlier.
Nope.
This article here at comicbookmovie.com talks about how, and this is something we have known for a while, that they had booked dates in Cincinnati, specifically at the Union Terminal, which was the original inspiration for the Hall of Justice in the Super Friends TV series where we first see it. We now know that they're on the 18th tomorrow going to Cincinnati, from Cleveland onto Cincinnati, as the great Bill Belichick once upon a time says, they're on to Cincinnati. What do you think they're going to film there? What do you think? Because they've wrapped up 6 weeks of shooting in Cleveland, and now they go to Cincinnati to film at least one day and possibly longer. We know the film permits give them permissions to film in various parts of Ohio all the way till August. Whether they're going to use all those dates or not, what we know about the 18th is they are going to have real police officers as extras, which is from a casting notice that went out, I think, a number of weeks ago. So this has been a while in the making. But what do you think they're going to be filming at the Hall of Justice? We've already seen a bunch of fight sequences in Cleveland. We have seen Superman save a bunch of people. We have seen Hal Jordan. We have seen, not Hal Jordan, actually. We have seen Guy Gardner. We have seen Mr. Terrific. We have seen Hawkgirl. Who's going to be in the shoot? What's going to be going down? And what part of the movie do you think it might be a part of?
I think it might have. There could be a fight sequence here. I don't think they're going to film something that big, though. I think this might be like an extra building that like Maxwell Lord or Lex Luthor owns that's going to be like converted into the Hall of Justice eventually. If I were to guess, it would be like a Lord Tech asset that's like, all right, might as well we have this extra thing, just do what you want here. This is your headquarters, sure, why not, whatever, do what you want. Or like I was theorizing that like, oh, maybe it's like a LexCorp or Luthor Corp in this case asset, and then like he gets arrested by the end of the movie, and then they're like, oh yeah, let's use this because we have this, and he has to like sell it off because he needs to make bail or something, or he needs to pay for a lawyer, and then And so they're like, oh, well, this was initially used for a bad man. Let's use it for good now. So then they use it for good and becomes the Hall of Justice. I don't know. I think that would be kind of cute. So we have Mr. Terrific. So it might be like a Lord Tech thing. It might be a Luthor Corp thing. I don't know. Maybe it's a Stag Enterprises thing. Who knows? We will see. So I think in the Arrowverse, it was supposed to be like an extra Ferris Air warehouse or something like that. Ferris Air is where Hal Jordan works in the comics, by the way, if you didn't know that. So they might do something like, I feel like they might do something like that, or we already have it as it's already the Hall of Justice, and eventually it like gets owned by like the real Justice League rather than, Maxwell Lord's Justice League International corporate bullshit that it was in like the late 80s and early 90s. And then we have that. So I think that would be kind of cool in terms of my ideas for that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's getting very
Gunn
late.
already, yeah. Gunn already, to James Gunn, that has already said he's overjoyed to be, well, that's actually from February 29th. I take that back. Let's take a look at this video real quick. This looks like, the crew just setting up out there to get all the filming up and running. And we've already seen Eddie Gategi there. I'm excited to see what they do with this. It's going to be interesting whether they shoot anything from the outside. I mean, they should, because it's the iconic look that they're going for. You could see all the production trailers are already being set up, and they've already got a few actors there. They might be rehearsing scenes. I know today wasn't really a shooting day, but they are going to be shooting tomorrow, so today might have been rehearsals. But yeah, it's a big presence. The museum shut down, and only people allowed in there are going to be the cast and crew of the movie. We're going to get into that tomorrow. We're going to get into that and so much more when we get more pictures from the shoot over at Union Terminal in Cincinnati. Superman, of course, done shooting in Cleveland after 6 weeks, and they're now on to Cincinnati. Of course, we're on to Cincinnati. As always, guys, thanks for watching the show. It's been great. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back with more DCU Daily tomorrow. We'll have more movie reviews next week on the show when we review Twisters. Where we'll be chasing tornadoes.
I am coming to get you. Bye-bye.
I have to put that back in there. Tornadoes.
If you feel it, chase it.
Chase it. Exactly. So we'll see you back here on No So Curious next week. We'll see you back here on DC Daily tomorrow. All the pictures from Cincinnati, what they're filming out there, whether we get to see any new characters, maybe we get to reveal some mystery character identities. I doubt James Gunn is going to let that get out there, but we'll keep an eye out. We'll start doing some detective comics. Dissecting. We'll start detecting.
It'll be like that scene in Spy Kids 2 where it's just like
and theorizing. Exactly.
The glasses,
Enhance, Yeah. Enhance. But until then, guys, John, thank you so much. Angelina was on the show earlier. As always, go out there, watch something in a movie theater, whether it's Longlegs, Fly Me to the Moon. Watch
Eventually Twisters.
Eventually Twisters. It's actually, I think it's already set to be out.
Yeah, out
tomorrow.
Today or tomorrow. Yeah.
Depending on where you are, if you have a screening nearby, go watch Twisters. Come back and tell us what you thought about it. Did you like Glenn Powell? Did you like Daisy Edgar Jones, Anthony Ramos, all the other fantastic actors? Is it a movie that lives up to the original Twister from 1996? And then, of course, back tomorrow with more Superman news. So until then, John, it's been fantastic to see you. As always, we'll see you here next time on another episode of Also Curious, and tomorrow on another episode of DCU Daily. Until then, Cleveland.